Good day and welcome back to Scriptures Unlocked. As we continue to make our way through the book of Genesis, we are now on to Genesis chapter 33, where we'll now look at Jacob and Esau's reunion. So this presentation is entitled Jacob and Esau Reunited. So in the previous presentation, Jacob made preparations to meet Esau, his brother, after being separated for 20 years. But the time finally came where he would have to face Esau for the first time since stealing his blessing. Genesis 33 verse 1 and 2 tells us this. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he, Jacob, divided the children unto Leah, his first wife, and unto Rachel, his second wife, and unto the two handmaidens who were his concubines. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, meaning in the front, and Leah and their children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. So Jacob here clearly loved all his children, but the order that he placed them in with their mothers clearly showed that he favored Rachel and Joseph more than his other wife and his other children. So here you can see on screen Jacob telling Rachel and Joseph to stay in the back, while he placed Leah in the middle and the handmaiden and their children at the front. So there is an open display of favoritism based on the order outlined. So in the front, you have Bilhah and Zilpah. These were Rachel and Leah's handmaiden, who became Jacob's concubines. And their children were Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. In the middle, we have Leah, who gave Jacob 6 sons and 1 daughter: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun, as well as Dinah. And in the back, you had Rachel and their son Joseph, because at this time, Benjamin was not yet born. So this meant that Rachel and Joseph were the most protected, with Bilhah and Zilpah, along with their children, being the least protected. And he, Jacob, passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. So here you can see that he showed humility. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. So Jacob led the way and approached his brother by humbly bowing before him 7 times, showing that he was submitting to Esau, because as he told God in prayer in Genesis 32 verse 11, he told God that I fear him, referring to Esau. And he didn't know what to expect, especially since Esau was coming to meet him with 400 men. He was fearing the worst. However, it's clear that God had softened Esau's heart, because in an unexpected turn of events, after the tension that was being built up from the previous chapters, Esau ran and longingly embraced his twin brother. And here you can see on screen again, Jacob falling prostrate before his brother Esau, bowing himself 7 times. So we are told that Esau kissed Jacob and both brothers wept. Genesis 33 verse 5 to 7 tells us this. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the woman, this is Esau, and the children, and said, Who are those with thee? And Jacob said, The children which God had graciously given thy servant. Again, Jacob refers to himself as Esau's servant. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves before Esau. And Leah also with her children came near, and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. So Esau was introduced to all of Jacob's wives and concubines, along with their respective children. And Esau then said to Jacob, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. Again, he refers to Esau as his Lord. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou as unto thyself. So Esau was clearly a very wealthy man as well. And he was saying to his brother, You don't have to give me all this gift just to find favor in my sight. Let bygone be bygone, essentially. That's what Esau was saying. Esau was a very rich man, and he didn't want to take anything from Jacob. But as you will see, Jacob will insist and Esau would finally relent. So Esau said, I have enough, my brother, keep that thou hast unto thyself. Esau asked Jacob about the generous gift of the 580 animals that was given to him, and initially refused to accept the gift. And by his own admission, he too was a wealthy man, because as I just showed you, Esau said, and I quote, I have enough, end of quote. However, Jacob insisted until Esau finally relented. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because, and notice what he then said, I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. So both brothers declared, I have enough. And this is such a blessing that both brothers could say that God has blessed them so much that they have enough and they are contented. So here you can see Esau with his hand around Jacob, talking after their 20 years of separation, explaining all is well now, and Jacob trying to press him to accept the gift, and Esau finally accepted. Viewers, it was very important to Jacob that Esau accepted the gift, because it was his way of showing his brother that he was truly sorry. And by accepting, Jacob would know that he was forgiven, since in the Middle Eastern culture of that day, and even today, persons only accepted gifts from friends as a sign of goodwill and never from an enemy. And notice what we continue to read. Esau then said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. And Jacob said unto him, My Lord, know it that the children are tender, meaning they are young, and the flocks and herds with young are with me. And if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. Let my lord Esau, he is speaking to Esau, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that go before me, and their children be able to endure, until I come unto my lord unto Seir. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And Jacob said, There's no need for that. What needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him an house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. So Esau wanted Jacob to return with him to his home in Seir. But Jacob clearly had other ideas, based on God's instruction when he told him to leave Haran. Notice what God told Jacob in Genesis 31 verse 3. And Jehovah said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. Seir was not in the land of Canaan. God specifically told Jacob to return to the land of Canaan, the land of thy fathers. That's where Abraham lived. That's where Isaac lived. And Isaac was Esau and Jacob's father. And to thy kindred, and God told him, I would be with thee. So Jacob did not take up Esau on the offer. So Jacob allowed Esau to go ahead, and then he went a separate way, and he came to Succoth. So here you can see Esau waving goodbye to Jacob, as Jacob would then make his way to the land of Canaan. Seir occurs 39 times in the Hebrew scriptures. It is Strong's H 8165. It means hairy or shaggy, similar to how Esau was described. Originally, he was the patriarch of the Horites, the inhabitants of Edom before the descendants of Esau, who became the Edomites. Because Edom is a nickname for Esau. It is the land of Edom, south of the Dead Sea, a mountain range in Edom extending from the Dead Sea to the Atlantic Gulf. Apparently also Mount Seir, and extending most of the distance of the mountain range itself. The Hebrew word Sukkoth occurs 18 times. It is Strong's H 5523. Sukkoth actually means booth, which is what Jacob built for his cattle. The site where Jacob put up booths for his cattle and built a house for himself. It is east of the Jordan near the ford of the torrent Jabbok, and later allotted to the tribe of Gad when the children of Israel were settled in the land of Canaan. So here on screen you can see a map of the area. Jacob resided here in Sukkoth. He would then go on to Shechem, as we'll read about later, And this is where Esau dwelt, in the land of Edom, just south of the land of Israel. So Jacob then settles in Shechem. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan. And that's where God told him to go. He was being very obedient. So he came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram, that's from Haran, and pitched his tent before the city. And Jacob bought a parcel of field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it El Elohe Israel. So when Jacob came to Shechem, he bought a piece of land of his own money, and it was here that he finally accepted Jehovah, the God of his fathers, Abraham and Isaac, as his personal God, which is precisely why he built an altar there and called it El Elohe Israel, which literally means God, the God of Israel. And remember, Jacob's name was changed when he had that encounter with the man who he wrestled with prior to meeting Esau. And the man, Jesus Christ, the Son of God himself, asked him what his name was, and he said his name was Jacob. And the angel said to him, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but you shall be called from henceforth Israel, because for as a man thou hast fought with God, who is the angel, and with men, and thou hast prevailed. So when Jacob said, when he built that altar and said, this altar will be called El Elohe Israel, he's saying God, the God of Israel. He was saying that God was now his God, and that was the vow that he made in Bethel before he left Canaan. He said, if God will be with me and provide for me and bring me back to this land, then Jehovah will be my God. And that's when he vowed. And here you can see Jacob fulfilling his promise. And this is the first place where Jacob acknowledged that Jehovah was his God. Because prior to this, every time he was referring to God, he said, the God of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac. He did not refer to God as his God. But when God fulfilled his promise to him and brought him back to the land of Canaan, Jacob finally accepted Jehovah, the only true God, as his personal God. So here, viewers, is the end of Genesis chapter 33. We will continue to make our way through the book of Genesis. And as we look into the next couple of presentations, we are now going to look at Jacob's life in Shechem and what transpired during that time. So stay tuned, continue to follow along, and may God continue to bless us as we continue to study his words to prove all things. Have yourselves a great day.